Hi, it's Dwyer. GamblersAdvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Both of them are free sites. Let me just say a happy belated holidays to everyone. I hope Santa left a little bit extra in your stocking. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let's just quickly go over some crypto. Let me just say that in 2018, I'm expecting Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Dash, and Pivx to cut into Bitcoin's market share. Quite frankly, each of these coins is cheaper, faster, both of which provide the consumer and the merchant selling the good or service with a better experience. And at the end of the day, it's all about the experience and utility that will determine the fate of all of these coins, right? Full disclosure, I own all of the coins I've just mentioned. I just feel that Bitcoin is living off of first mover status, and the community has gotten complacent and has forgotten about the consumer and the merchant. Simply put, I'd rather be in Bitcoin Cash or Dash than Bitcoin. Let me also say, too, for those of you looking for a free podcast that has really good stuff on cryptocurrency, things to consider, where to buy, which crypto to buy, let me give an endorsement here, and I don't know him, I'm not getting money from him, but let me give an endorsement here to Ty, that's T-A-I, Lopez. He has a podcast series that you could check out on Castbox or whatever podcast provider of your choice you use. It's called Crypto Mastermind, right? And let me just say, I found the podcast to be helpful. It's a good primer for people just finding out about cryptocurrency. Now let's dive into sports. These are researched picks. It will be your call on whether or not they are educated picks. Just understand, this is the part of the internet where the odds matter. I'm looking for value. So I'll pick against a fighter I think will win if the odds compensate me for the risk, right? That's the philosophy. So today is December the 28th, 2017, and 2 days in MMA. You have one of MMA's bigger dust-ups. You have Chris Cyborg taking on Holm. Cyborg is the minus 400 favorite. She's my recommended play here. Understand, Holm is 4 years older than Chris Cyborg. I know Holm looks young, looks in great shape. She's 36 in a young woman's game, right? She's also lost 3 of her last 4, 2 by unanimous decision. In other words, if it goes to a decision, there's no guarantee that Holm is going to win it, because her last 2 that went to a decision went to her opponent, right? She also lost a recent match, right? One of her last 4 by submission. Let me say, too, that although Holm has a boxing background, she's going to be the person who needs to make the other person miss, because Chris Cyborg is the bigger puncher, right? She's 18-1. Don't be fooled by the fact that they're both 5'8", 145 pounds. Cyborg has the bigger frame. Cyborg, quite frankly, is the bigger puncher. She has a KO streak of 8 right now. She's literally KO'd or TKO'd her last 8 opponents. She's younger, more aggressive. I like the minus 400. I'm taking Chris Cyborg in that matchup. Now let's switch to boxing. Let me just say that if 2018, in my opinion, is going to belong to anyone, I believe it's going to be Joseph Parker. Right? Now, I know this goes against the public grain, but the plays I like. And you can check the odds on oddchecker.com. I like Joseph Parker going off at 9-1. He's the underdog right now at Paddy Power. We'll name a betting shop. Right? Parker's a 9-1 underdog right now against Anthony Joshua. And I like Parker in that one, hedged with Joshua by KO at 1-7. Just understand the gap between the 9-1 and the 1-7 allows the hedge. Now, I know the public thinks Anthony Joshua is the next great heavyweight. He's certainly the public favorite, having drawn 80 and 90,000 people to fights. Well, let me just say, I believe Parker beats him because Parker is the change of pace right now from this era of flat-footed, power-punching heavyweights. Right? Parker is the guy who's up on his toes. Parker is the guy who can make movement an issue. It's very hard to learn to move in the middle of your career. So let me just say, Parker, in my opinion, is the better athlete. He has the better stamina. He has the better movement. Let me point out, we just saw Billy Joe Saunders use movement to destabilize and to beat David Lemieux. Right? Movement used to be such a part of the heavyweight division that back in the day, look up the tape. Even guys with great jabs, Larry Holmes, when he gets decked, dropped by Ernie Shavers in the rematch, gets up, gets on his toes, is semi-conscious, is moving around the ring. Now, I encourage people to YouTube these videos, right? Understand, many of the guys that Mike Tyson fought early in his career, because they were at the tail end of an era, guys like Tony Tucker knew how to move. Right now, we get to the Tyson era. Tyson dispenses largely with a jab. Tyson starts diving in. Then suddenly, we end up with a new era of bigger, power-punching heavyweights. You know, I know many people are going to think the sport is linear. That this time it's different. I'm just here to tell you that the phrase "this time is different" is hardly true. Boxing moves in cycles. Certain guys with belts right now can barely move. Anthony Joshua can barely move. Is big, is clunky, can't get out of the way. Right? Compare Anthony Joshua to Sonny Liston. Let's remember when Ali fights Liston. Liston had little chance because Liston couldn't find Ali in the ring. He's moving too much. Joseph Parker has the capability, because he has much better feet than Anthony Joshua. He has the capability to look like Ali, in my opinion, against Anthony Joshua. Let me point out, too, that Parker, who can go flat-footed, Parker is much more sudden than Anthony Joshua. Just look at the Demetrenko KO, where Parker's outside, jumps inside, pivots, hits Demetrenko in the ribcage. Folks, that's the end of that fight. Importantly, too, although Parker himself is big, Parker can get lower. He has a more flexible center of gravity. He can bend at the waist. Parker can get lower than Anthony Joshua. He should be able to duck under Joshua's punches. We all know Joshua has one of boxing's best uppercuts. If he can duck low, get rid of all the high stuff, and look for the uppercut, I think the fight's a relatively easy fight for Joseph Parker. I believe Joseph Parker's fight against Hughie Fury style-wise, was a tougher fight for him than Anthony Joshua would be. Let me say, too, that I know Joshua beats Vladimir Klitschko, but Joshua, in my opinion, hasn't beaten a guy under 30 who moves well. Right? Look up his opponents. Let me also say, too, that Joshua, in my opinion, because he's going to look stationary against Parker, won't be able to land his jab against Parker. Because I view Joshua as somewhat robotic, I think that's going to throw off his entire game, just like Sonny Liston's inability to land his jab against Ali that first fight threw off his entire game. Let's go further. If the fight takes place in 2018, I like Joshua over Tyson Fury. Now, people here online know I think the world of Fury. I think when Fury's on his A game, Fury could be the best heavyweight on the planet. Certainly, he handled Vladimir Klitschko. And let's be clear, Klitschko wasn't as rusty. Hadn't spent as much time out of the ring for the Fury fight than he did for the Joshua fight. So here is Fury fighting a fresher Klitschko, and he boxes the socks off Klitschko. There's no moment in that fight where Fury's on the canvas. Right? Klitschko after that fight couldn't say, man, I gave away that fight because I didn't step on the gas, because I thought the other guy was going to be tired late. Right? No, that fight's one way to the point where Fury is able at different times to put both hands behind his back. Look at the tape. That's a qualitatively better performance than the Anthony Joshua edge-of-your-seat performance where Joshua gets caught, then the fight hangs in the balance late in the fight. But let me say this. Fury is a long way from having his A game, isn't he? Right? I've looked at Fury. Let's just say he doesn't look like he lives in the gym. Right? He's not a guy who's always in shape. You're not going to confuse him with Vladimir Klitschko or Evander Holyfield. Right? Fury's gained a lot of weight, hasn't he? Now that matters because a big part of Fury's game is his lightness on his feet, his ability to move. And as they say, folks, the legs are the first to go. In my opinion, one man's opinion, Muhammad Ali never regained the legs that he had before he was exiled. The Ali in the 1960s moved qualitatively better than the Ali of the 1970s. It's going to take Fury some time to get his legs back. I don't think that happens his first fight. I don't think it happens in his second fight. Now let me just say, you know the way boxing is, right? It's a strategy of many camps to fight guys before they get in shape. Right? I'm guessing if Parker beats Joshua, as I suspect he will, I'm guessing he declares war on the United Kingdom, takes on Fury. Fury, who is a little bit temperamental, might get caught up in the hype and might not realize that he needs a few more fights to get in shape, to hop in the ring with a dangerous young lion who isn't rusty, who hasn't been exiled, who hasn't been out of the ring for years. Right? If the two guys fight this year being 2018, I'll take Joseph Parker because I'm going to question whether Fury is back on his A game. Let me say this, though. If Joshua ends up fighting Fury in 2018, all bets are off because I think Fury's B game might be able to beat Joshua's A game. Next, and again, this is one man's opinion. I want everyone here to remember the preamble and to think for themselves. But yes, gambling involves risks, and I'm telling you that sometimes you have to be prepared to take a 9-1 underdog like Joseph Parker is against Anthony Joshua, because sometimes conventional wisdom is wrong, as I think it is in the next fight. Folks, apart from 9-1 Joseph Parker, another underdog play I like, where I quite frankly think the underdog wins the fight outright, is Jurgen Brähmer over unbeaten Callum Smith. Understand, Brähmer's 5-1. The secret to this fight, in my opinion, is that Brähmer, who is 39 years of age, has a boxing game that does not rely on youth, hand speed, or foot speed. Understand, this guy is right at the top of the game when it comes to understanding angles, right? Spacing, pacing. He's what I call a technician, just like Juan Manuel Marquez, just like Floyd Mayweather, right? These are guys who come in the ring and they outthink you, right? Now, I'm not saying that the guys I named have no athletic skills whatsoever. In my opinion, Mayweather, particularly young Mayweather, was a freak athlete, right? But what I'm saying is that these guys aren't in the ring expending as much physical energy as their opponents, right? They're guys getting by on technique. They've studied their opponents. They know how to exploit an opponent's weakness. Well, the key is technicians age more slowly than guys relying on their physical gifts. Let me say, too, that Brähmer, who was the champ at 175 pounds, and I know some of you are going to say, who did he fight at 175? He didn't fight Adonis Stevenson. Let me flip the question. Who has Adonis Stevenson fought at 175 pounds? I'm just telling you, you have a weird situation in boxing these days where guys could be champs for years and not fight other guys, right? 175 has always mystified me. Seems that there's Jean Pascal, who fights everyone. Then you have a bunch of guys who don't fight anyone, right? How has Adonis Stevenson survived as long as he has without fighting Kovalev, Ward, Jean Pascal, or Jurgen Brähmer? Well, let me say this. Understand that in the fight where Brähmer loses his title, Brähmer's winning the fight. He's beating Nathan Cleverly. What I want people to realize is that I feel Nathan Cleverly beats Callum Smith. I mean, Brähmer has fought bigger men, guys who are athletes at 175. Now he's fighting unproven guys. Who's Callum Smith's big opponent? Eric Stroglin? Right? So, Brähmer's winning the fight, then he suffers an arm injury. Now, skeptics could easily say, well, that's age catching up to him, isn't it? Right? Father Time can tap you on the shoulder in many ways. Right? One time you're in the ring and you age overnight. Okay, that hasn't happened to Brähmer. Brähmer's the other kind of tap where you're in the ring, you're yourself, but then suddenly body parts start failing you. Now, I'll agree, obviously, if Brähmer's here and a ligament snaps, right, he finds out that he can't move his elbow or so, okay, then he'll be in trouble. It's a world-class fight. But my point to you is this southpaw has vastly more experience than Callum Smith. Has a back foot game that Callum Smith couldn't imagine in his best dream. Right? Let me say, too, that Callum Smith is the kind of guy who wants to corner you. Smith is a size guy. Right? He's 6'3", fighting at 168 pounds. He wants to impose that size on you. He wants to come up and corner you and challenge you. The problem is he'll be trying to cut off the ring against a guy who wants him to try to cut off the ring. Be careful what you wish for. Understand, with technicians, they want you to charge them. Right? Think about how Marquez knocked out Manny Pacquiao. Where did he want Pacquiao? Diving in right in front of him. That's Jürgen Brähmer. Let's remember how Brähmer dismantled Macaronelli. Right? These bigger guys look at him and think he's smaller, thinks he's non-threatening, see that he's balding. They run in, try to rough him up. Then they find out that they can't find him even in the pocket. Then they find out that Brähmer, southpaw, knows how to bend, knows how to move his body, so there's hardly any hittable surface. Then they find out that Brähmer, who has more than 30 KOs, hits harder than advertised. Folks, I'm telling you, in my opinion, Brähmer hits as hard as Callum Smith. Let's remember, power is the last to go. Right? Legs are the first to go, power is the last to go. Brähmer hits hard, and he's accustomed to fighting bigger guys. I like Brähmer at 5-1. You can hedge this play with Callum Smith by KO. Let's talk about another fight. This is a bonus. Let's just say, even though it's December 28th, it must still be Christmas. Now, I know I'm taking a lot of underdogs here. As I said, this is the part of the internet where the odds matter. Folks, that's where you get your value. Now, I know who Errol Spence is. As many of you know, and the video is still up here on YouTube, I took Errol Spence over Kell Brook in Sheffield. Kell Brook's backyard. Kell Brook's home arena. But the value play I like is 10-1 underdog. At Paddy Power right now, Lamont Peterson to win the fight, hedged with Spence by KO. Right? So this is a video, you decide if I'm alone here, where I'm suggesting 9-1 Joseph Parker, and I'm suggesting 10-1 Lamont Peterson. Let's just say this. Go back and look at the early rounds of Spence against Kell Brook. Right? By the way, I'll hedge the play. I'll hedge the Lamont Peterson at 10-1 to win with Spence by KO. The odds allow it. Right? Your hedge should protect you if Spence just proves to be too big and too powerful. Understand, Spence spars with guys like Jamal Charlo. Right? 154-pound champ. Right? Spence is big for 147. By contrast, if you look at Peterson's history, you know, he's moving up from 140, right? He has a share of the belt now at 147, but let's say he used to be smaller. But go back and look at the early part of Spence's fight against Kell Brook, and you'll find out that Errol Spence's A-game could not match Kell Brook's A-game. Right? A fully rested Kell Brook is better than Errol Spence. Right? Kell Brook can get in the fast lane on the highway and drive faster in his car than Errol Spence can in his. But, right, Kell Brook had yo-yoed in weight. Right? Kell Brook had gained weight to fight at 160 against one of boxing's very best, Golovkin. Kell Brook suffered a loss. Then Kell Brook was dropping 2 weight classes to fight Errol Spence. You knew that Kell Brook was going to have a rough time of it. right? You just knew it. And let me just say that Spence really won because Kell Brook was older. Kell Brook had just been stopped where he had a fractured eye socket. Right? That's going into the Spence fight. He had a fractured eye socket that then healed. Let's remember he has eye problems in the Spence fight. Right? And so Brook had to tire. Excuse me. Yeah, Kell Brook had to tire a bit before Errol Spence was competitive. Right? Let me say, too, that Brook, who comes in, takes out your rib cage, is, hooking you to death. He's a mid to short range hooker, in my opinion. He's not as nimble as Lamont Peterson, who has an advantage from the outside. Right? What I also believe, too, and this is part of the psychology of boxing, is that Errol Spence sees himself as alpha. He sees Lamont Peterson, who has been stopped in some dramatic fights, the Lucas Matisse fight, for example. He sees Lamont Peterson as a guy who has been stopped before, who's physically smaller than him. So I think Errol Spence, who's been calling out Keith Thurman and bigger names than Lamont Peterson. I believe Errol Spence is going to see himself as alpha here and is going to try to end this by KO from inside the pocket. He's not going to be on his back foot. He's not going to be using the whole ring. Right? He's an unbeaten fighter. He thinks he's bulletproof. Well, let me say this. The fight's at Barclays. Understand, Lamont Peterson has already fought an Errol Spence type, didn't he? He fought mid-range hooker Danny Garcia at Barclays. Right? Let's just say that Lamont Peterson won over the crowd with a back foot game. Right? Peterson was moving. Peterson has an advanced back foot game and has the better feet in general. He's dealt with hyper-aggressive fighters. Didn't he start off his fight against Amir Khan, who has much faster hand speed than Errol Spence? Didn't Peterson start off his fight against Amir Khan in trouble? Wasn't Khan hyper-aggressive that fight? Didn't Peterson, who belongs in the cagey, crafty, veteran category of the sport, didn't Lamont Peterson make adjustments, end up winning that fight against Amir Khan? Against Danny Garcia, he barely lost. Go back and look at the film. Right? Barely lost. Understand, too, Peterson's a guy who beat Felix Diaz, another front foot heavy action fighter. So what you have here is a cagey veteran who's already fought at the venue, who's already fought against hyper-aggressive fighters, against a guy who is going to give away his height, is going to spend his time trying to hunt down Peterson, who knows how to move his feet and who knows how to protect himself on the move. The 10-1 is absurd here. Right? Lamont Peterson, in my opinion, has, let's say, a 1 in 3 chance of winning this fight. So I'm taking the underdog here, but I'm going to hedge the play with the favorite by KO. Rest assured, though, that if this fight goes the distance, Spence is going to be in trouble on the scorecards. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I understand we're going against the public. Let me just say, didn't the public think Hillary Clinton was going to win the 2016 presidential election? How many times have you heard members of the public tell you foolish things like Bitcoin is a bubble, the blockchain is a fad? Isn't the public wrong many times? And yet the public keeps pricing fights like Joseph Parker against Anthony Joshua at 9-1, and Lamont Peterson against Errol Spence at 10-1. When the public is wrong, hey, I'll be your huckleberry. I'll take the underdogs, but I'll hedge the plays. Right? Anthony Joshua by KO at 1-7 sounds absurd until you realize you're getting 9-1 on the other side of the play. Focus on the gap in the odds being offered. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me say this too. I've been reading the comments and I hear that, you know, I'm supposed to be anti-Anthony Joshua and stuff like that. Look, you know, let me say it's not a matter of being pro or anti any fighter. When you're betting, you have to make decisions. Right? Who's better than who? How does this guy's strengths match up with this guy's weaknesses? So I offer no apology for saying some hard things about some crowd favorites, some box office gold fighters. Right? Sometimes they're the ones who are overvalued. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.